Specifically the one that is seen in the individual in the black and white jacket.
Correct.
Fresh footage just surfaced, and it's flipping the entire YNW Melly case upside down. What went down that night is way more complicated than people thought before the tragic murders shook the world. Melly and Bortland were caught on camera, and the streets are buzzing that this clip changes everything, breaking down the evidence that's got Melly looking cornered. Yo, let me break it down for y'all on why the prosecution believes they finally got YNW Melly nailed. After Bortland's plea deal had everyone in the trap buzzing, eyes immediately turned to the evidence the state had been holding back. And when you see it all laid out, it's easy to understand why Melly's legal squad has been moving like the walls are closing in. The feds came in with 7 key pieces meant to prove Melly pulled the trigger himself. Each piece aimed to dismantle that drive-by narrative and place him right in the backseat with the blicky in hand. The most telling piece? Surveillance from New Era recording studios. The cameras captured Melly, Bortland, Sackchaser, and Juvie together around 4:09 a.m. on October 26, 2018. But it's not just that they were moving as a unit, it's where they chose to stop that had the prosecution hyped. During the trial, the victim's mother had to painfully watch that footage and identify her child.
Did you recognize the individual that got into the back seat on the left side, the rear driver's side?
Yes.
And who was that individual?
Jamel.
And Jamel, is that the defendant, Jamel Demons?
Yes, ma'am.
That clip shows Melly sliding into the left rear seat, the exact spot where ballistics experts say the fatal shots came from. One video alone completely dismantled the defense's claim that Melly wasn't even in the car when his friends got killed. That footage left his attorneys visibly shaken. Forensic evidence told a story that, according to investigators, couldn't be twisted. They found no signs that the shots came from outside the vehicle. No bullet holes on the passenger side where a drive-by would have hit. Things got worse for the defense. The driver's side window was shattered from the inside, not outside. Crime scene reconstruction expert Sergeant Christopher Williams delivered some harsh, damaging testimony in that first trial.
My determination was that this is not a drive-by shooting. The shooter is at a stationary position when all but one of these rounds are going in.
Inside the car, they recovered 8 shell casings from 2 different calibers, a .40 and a .45. Trajectory analysis confirmed that all the fatal shots originated exactly where Melly was seated, not from some random shooter outside. Even the timing of the injuries worked against the defense. Williams explained how investigators knew both victims were already dead when the fake drive-by was staged.
It was enough time for the heart to stop beating, for there to be no circulation due to the wounds that I examined from the medical examiner's office. None of the wounds have any blood in them, which tells me that they're all ante-mortem wounds.
This evidence suggested Sackchaser and Juvie had already been killed when they tried to make it look like an outside attack. That's calculated, cold-blooded street-level manipulation. Melly's DNA was all over the left rear door handle of the Jeep, confirming he was in the shooter's position. The defense argued this only proved he had been in the car earlier, but combined with the surveillance footage, it painted a stark, clear picture for the prosecutors. Interestingly, no gunshot residue was found on Melly's hands, something his team used to argue he didn't fire the shots. The prosecution countered that given the time gap before testing, that didn't mean much. The technical evidence made things even more incriminating. Melly's phone pinged near the scene of the murders, placing him exactly where he claimed he wasn't. Detective Mark Moretti broke down those phone location pings.
This is the actual crime scene on US 27 Pembroke Road.
And approximately where along Pembroke Road on this map were those casings discovered?
And the digital trail gets even messier for Melly. There was an Instagram DM allegedly sent by him saying, "Sure, I did that," in response to a question about the murders. If genuine, that's practically a confession over social media. One of the most shocking aspects of the case involves the murder weapons. During Detective Polo's testimony, investigators revealed suspicious details about items that mysteriously vanished, raising more questions than answers.
Specifically the one that is seen in the individual in the black and white jacket.
Correct.
Did Mr. Henry have possession of either of those satchels or man purses at the hospital?
No, ma'am.
That studio footage shows both Melly and Bortland carrying bags as they roll out with the victims. But by the time Bortland arrived at the hospital with the bodies, those bags had vanished. Legal analysts are suggesting those bags likely held the murder weapons, which were never recovered. That's some real organized, calculated disposal right there. The prosecution laid out why Melly allegedly would kill his own friends. Gang expert Danny Polo testified that Melly had ties to the G-Shine Bloods and that taking out Sackchaser and Juvie could have boosted him financially and elevated his standing in the crew. Text messages circulating among the group revealed tensions brewing before the murders. Sackchaser was upset about Melly getting all the spotlight while he felt like he was handling the real work behind the scenes. Money and respect. two things that have broken up more crews than anything else in these streets. Those texts got heated when sack chasers started clashing with Melly's mom over business dealings. In the hood, once someone disrespects your family, things can turn deadly real fast. The prosecution's theory claims that after Melly allegedly shot his friends inside the Jeep, he and Bortland drove to another location and fired into the SUV from outside to stage a drive-by. But the forensic evidence contradicted that cover-up. Blood spatter patterns and bullet trajectories didn't match what would happen in an actual drive-by. Plus, there were no holes on the right side of the vehicle, where drive-by bullets would typically land. The way both defendants acted at the hospital raised serious suspicion. Security footage captured Bortland changing his clothes upon arrival, as if trying to destroy evidence. Hospital staff said he seemed disoriented and kept shifting his story about what happened. Even more suspicious, Melly wasn't at the hospital at all, despite supposedly being close to both victims. If your day ones just got shot and you really cared about them, wouldn't you be there to check on them? The most contentious aspect of the prosecution's case involves using Melly's own lyrics against him. They're trying to admit bars from Murder on My Mind and other tracks to show his mindset. Prosecutors originally aimed to use over 100 songs, but whether those lyrics can actually be admitted is still being contested in appeals. There's also a promo video prosecutors want to include, which is likewise under appeal. The question of whether artistic expression counts as evidence is something the courts are still wrestling with. Despite all this, Melly's defense continues arguing that the case is built on assumptions and flawed investigations. They point to the absence of gunshot residue, the missing murder weapons, and alleged police misconduct. The defense also highlighted Detective Mark Moretti admitting to threatening witnesses with deportation and jail, raising serious doubts about witness credibility. But here's the twist. With Bortland's plea deal now confirming the murders happened inside the Jeep and that he helped cover it up, the defense's job just got exponentially harder. They can't claim it was a real drive-by anymore. They can't deny the murders happened. Now the defense must prove Melly specifically didn't fire the shots, a far tougher task with all this evidence pointing his way. The streets have been waiting for answers since 2018. This evidence package is exactly why prosecutors feel confident they've got their man. But proof alone isn't enough. Convincing a jury beyond a reasonable doubt in the hood is another story entirely. That's where the defense prepared their most desperate play to save their client's life. Melly's retrial strategy turned into a nightmare scenario once Bortland's plea deal essentially confirmed the murders occurred inside the Jeep and that he helped cover it up. The entire defense plan had to be flipped on its head. What unfolded next revealed deep cracks in both camps and exposed just how messy this case truly was in the streets. From the very beginning, Melly's defense strategy was stirring up drama in the hip-hop community. During the 2023 trial, attorney David Howard directly blamed Bortland for the killings, telling the jury those were Bortland's lies. He lies about where the incident took place. He lies about how it went down, and he lies about not having the phone. This blame-shifting move had people in the streets calling it straight-up snitching on their own client's co-defendant. Social media was blowing up with comments like, well, and his defense put all the blame on Bortland in the first trial. So, technically, they both told it. And think about Melly's lawyer's opening statements and how he tried to make YNW Bortland the shooter. No way Bortland doesn't flip for the state. The defense built their case on several key points that had the street split. Howard highlighted that Bortland tested positive for gunshot residue while Melly didn't. They argued this proved Bortland was the one who actually fired the shots, not their client. The defense only called a single witness, Melly's friend Adrian A.D. Davis, who claimed Melly was out of the house when the shooting occurred. Davis said he found out about the murders at the same time as Melly and that his friend was wearing just shorts and a t-shirt when the news broke. The defense attacked law enforcement's investigation, arguing that Detective Mark Moretti was obsessed with pinning this on Melly because of his fame and street credibility. They pointed out Moretti's admission that he threatened witnesses with jail and deportation, raising serious doubts about the integrity of the investigation in the hood. The defense team's issues weren't only about their client's case. In a shocking twist, lead prosecutor Christine Bradley was removed from the case for allegedly hiding evidence from the defense. The controversy involved a police witness who reportedly asked another officer to lie about being present during a search warrant. Legal analyst Melba Pearson explained just how significant this was.
This is huge, and this is one of the biggest nightmares that any prosecutor could face, where you're getting taken off the case and now being called as a witness in said case.
The defense successfully argued that Bradley needed to be removed so they could call her as a witness to expose the detective who encouraged lying. This prosecutorial shakeup forced new prosecutors to learn 5 years of intricate case details with very little time before the retrial. Meanwhile, the defense faced their own internal chaos. In August 2025, Melly fired his previous attorneys amid a prosecutor investigation into potential witness tampering. His new legal team, Carrie Horwath and Drew Finling, inherited a case that had gotten far more complicated after Bortland's plea deal. Reports indicate Melly blamed the lawyer switch on interference from the prosecution. Although the streets weren't fully clear on why his team got dismissed, with Bortland no longer a co-defendant, the defense lost a critical advantage. Defense attorney Bradford Cohen explained what this meant in the streets.
That YNW Portland is not going to be a flipper, and he is not going to be the cheese eater I previously said that he could become. And he is going to give a statement. I don't know what that statement's going to be, but his attorney is an excellent attorney. He's one of my good friends and you know, really helped me out as a young attorney. Fred Haddad, a great guy. And he represented very, very few, if any, flippers in the past.
But other legal analysts weren't so confident about what Bortland's cooperation could signal. Attorney Bruce Rivers predicted that something major was about to unfold.
So theoretically, Phillips said, Borland could now be called as a witness in Melly's upcoming trial. He could testify for Melly or against Melly. But my guess is if he's agreeing to do a proffer, he's going to snitch. I expect that to be the case, Phillips said. If they subpoena him, he can no longer take the Fifth Amendment on these issues.
Through all this legal back and forth, the families of Anthony Williams and Christopher Thomas Jr. had been waiting nearly 7 years for closure. Attorney John M. Phillips, representing Christopher Thomas's family, handled both the criminal and civil sides of the case. Phillips broke down the family's perspective on Bortland's plea deal.
At the end of the day, Mr. Henry knows what happened. He was in the car, but he wasn't the shooter. And so finally, after all these years, for him to plead no contest, even though he was adjudicated guilty and accepted responsibility for this, in part, was favored.
The civil case adds another dimension because Bortland's plea deal prevents him from pleading the fifth in civil depositions. This opens additional avenues to uncover what truly happened on October 26, 2018, in the streets. The case highlighted major tensions in hip-hop culture around loyalty, status, and street credibility. Figures like Charleston White voiced sharp criticism of how the community responds to these types of situations.
You guys are so criminal-minded and caught up into this street culture where black people aren't even smart anymore. They think everybody dumb.
White's critique extended to the broader cultural support for defendants in high-profile cases, arguing that fans often side with celebrities regardless of the evidence. Despite years of legal battles and shifting strategies, the key evidence remains unchanged. That surveillance footage still shows Melly in the shooter seat. The ballistics still contradict the drive-by narrative. The digital trail still places Melly's phone at the scene. What has shifted is the legal context around that evidence. With Bortland's plea confirming the murders inside the Jeep, the defense can no longer claim no crime occurred or that the drive-by story was real. When your day one flips, y'all, this YNW Melly situation got messy fast, and I'm not exaggerating. September 9, 2025, changed everything in one of the street's most closely watched murder cases. YNW Bortland took a plea deal that had the whole hood talking. What went down in the Broward County courtroom was completely unexpected. Judge Michael Usen looked straight up confused, telling Bortland he couldn't figure out how his lawyers negotiated such a sweet deal.
All right, Mr. Henry, I'm not quite sure how your lawyers managed to do this, but I wish you good luck, sir.
We're talking about a guy who was originally facing life behind bars or possibly the chair for 2 first-degree murder charges. But somehow, someway, Bortland walked out with just 10 years and 6 on probation. That's finessing the system on a completely different level. 4 years, both Melly and Bortland stayed solid, claiming their innocence. Melly's first trial in 2023 ended in a hung jury. 9 jurors said not guilty, 3 said guilty. His retrial was scheduled for January 2027, giving his team time to prepare a new defense strategy. Then September 9th came and flipped the whole script. The courtroom vibe was low-key depressing. Only about 8 people showed up to support Bortland, including Melly's mom and little brother. No sign of 100K Track or anyone from Juvie and Sachs families. It was giving straight-up abandoned energy.
So the pre-forms to me look like 19 case as to the 2 counts of accessory after the fact, as well as to all 4 counts. The 23 case. These are going to be adjudication, 10 years for the state prison, followed by, that's a 6 years probation.
The deal itself was simple but loaded. Bortland pled to accessory after the fact and witness tampering, while the murder charges that could have meant life behind bars were dropped. But here's where it got spicy. The plea came with what's called a proffer agreement. Essentially, the feds wanted him to sit down and spill some tea. Defense attorney Bruce Rivers broke down what that really meant in the streets.
So here's what happens. He goes and he testifies, or talks to the prosecutor in a proffer. His lawyer's there, the agents on the case are there, the prosecutor's there. They ask him whatever they want, right? And nothing he says can be held against him in that proffer. Nothing. and this is what they call a snitch session.
The hood immediately started buzzing over whether Bortland was about to snitch on his boy. Attorney John M. Phillips, representing one of the victims' families, said Bortland agreeing to cooperate could give prosecutors the missing pieces they needed to lock up Melly for good. But Bortland's lawyer, Fred Haddad, wasn't having any of that snitch talk. He went on record saying, "I don't represent snitches," and insisted Bortland wasn't going to throw Melly under the bus. He said the proffer would be limited and wouldn't involve Bortland testifying in court against his co-defendant. Confusion in the streets was real. Some people thought this was straight-up snitching. Others saw it as just smart survival tactics. Reporter Seti Nash, who was in the courtroom reporting live, broke down the full picture.
No. His attorney said no, he will not testify. The only thing that's going to happen, based on what his attorney said, is he only got to answer a couple questions from the state, and then he got to go serve his time. And
Nash reporting suggested Bortland's cooperation would be minimal and wouldn't put Melly in immediate danger, which contradicted the early street rumors painting him as a full-blown informant. The timing raised mad eyebrows in the hood. There were 250 potential jurors ready to show up the next day and tons of money already spent prepping for trial. For Bortland to fold at the last minute, it seemed either his legal team got desperate or the feds offered him a deal he couldn't refuse. The most telling moment came after it was all said and done. The day after his sentencing, Bortland got on a jail phone and addressed all the snitch allegations with a freestyle that had the entire internet talking.
I look like taking the deal that hurt my... I look like giving how y'all feel. I'm a young fly. Be back to raising hell, prevail.
That freestyle was Bortland's way of telling the streets he didn't flip on his people, even though he took a deal some folks saw as betrayal. The man was basically saying he did what he had to do to survive the system, but he wasn't about to put his boy on death row. Within days, Bortland was transferred to state prison, where they shaved his dreads and prepped him for his bid. From rising rap star to state property, that's a humbling experience that changes any young hustler's perspective on life. But DJ Academics had a different take on what this plea deal really meant for Melly's case. And his breakdown had the hip-hop community thinking deeper.
When pleading to accessory to murder after the fact, you have to acknowledge that the murder happened and you assisted someone or in some way to cover the murder. Now, if Melly's statement is, how do we know there was a murder? And then secondly, how do we know who did the murder? Because they said it was a drive-by.
Academics pointed out something crucial that many in the streets missed. Even without direct testimony, Bortland's plea essentially admitted the murders happened inside the vehicle and that he helped cover it up. That could seriously weaken Melly's defense, which had relied on the drive-by narrative and both men claiming innocence. The hip-hop community was split on how to process all this drama. In a culture where snitching is considered one of the worst betrayals, people debated whether Bortland violated the street code or was just looking out for himself. Charleston White never held back his takes on street politics, delivering a harsh reality check that had some fans heated.
I hope they get his kid life. I hope he never gets out of prison. Yeah. He killed his friends.
White's perspective reflected one side of the community, the belief that if you're guilty of killing your own friends, you should face the consequences, regardless of fame, talent, or street cred. This plea deal marked a major turning point in a case that had gripped the hip-hop world since 2018. With Bortland no longer a co-defendant and possibly cooperating with prosecutors, Melly's defense team faced a new level of challenge. His retrial, now scheduled for January 2027, was delayed due to ongoing appeals over evidence admissibility. The appeals court must still decide if prosecutors can use technological evidence to establish Melly's alleged motives, gang ties, and consciousness of guilt. These delays added hurdles for both sides. New prosecutors must familiarize themselves with thousands of pages of prior evidence and testimony, while Melly's new defense team has to rebuild their strategy around Bortland's new status. Despite all the legal maneuvering, the stakes remain the same in the streets. Melly still faces 2 counts of first-degree murder and the possibility of the death penalty. Under Florida's modified death penalty law, only 8 jurors need to vote for execution rather than requiring unanimity, raising the stakes even higher. Justice in this case goes beyond technicalities and into the hood sense of right and wrong. For the families of Anthony Williams and Christopher Thomas Jr., justice means accountability for whoever took their sons. For Melly supporters in the streets, justice means protecting an innocent man from execution. For the broader community, justice means a fair trial with proper legal process, based on evidence rather than emotion or celebrity. Legal expert Sapper Robinson first stressed the importance of getting it right.
Yeah, I think that it's important, and this is a homicide case, this is a high stakes case. You want to ensure that there is integrity in the prosecution of this case because this family does deserve justice, and there isn't a person that deserves to be wrongfully convicted or in prison for something that they didn't do.
What's certain is that this case has already changed the lives of everyone in these streets. 2 young men lost their lives on October 26, 2018. 2 families lost their sons. Bortland will spend years in prison for his acknowledged role in covering up the crimes, and Melly faces the possibility of execution if convicted. Whether justice is ultimately served depends on how the system handles the retrial with new prosecutors, new defense attorneys, and a shifted legal landscape. The 2027 trial could look very different from the 2023 mistrial, but the core questions remain for the streets. What really happened on October 26, 2018? Who pulled the trigger that ended 2 young lives? And can the justice system deliver closure to the families while ensuring the right person is held accountable? The answers will have to wait until January 2027, when YNW Melly finally faces his day in court again. Like this video. Click the card on your screen for more.